Resuming debate, the honourable member for Niagara West.
And I want to thank you very much, Madam Speaker. And to my colleague from Calgary, Nose Hill, I appreciate those remarks. Those are great remarks that really reflect what I think if people are out at the doors talking to individuals, they'll recognize as this being an issue. And I think, it sort of boils down to the fact that I think Canadians have lost hope and they feel like they are drowning. And there's a number of factors that I think contribute to that. And one of the things I've noticed about this government over the last number of years, since they've been in power, is that they love to talk a great game. I mean, it's amazing the amount of promises they continue to deliver on, or promise to deliver on, that don't actually deliver on them. And I think that, it all sort of sums up an article that was in the paper in April of 2016, and it was Deliverology Guru schools the Liberal government for the second time at a cabinet retreat. And I'm guessing that he or she was there for a second time because they're having a hard time delivering the results, although it's pretty easy to make promises. And one of the things that concerns me about this government is not just the spending. I think that the member from Calgary Nose Hill laid that out very well in terms of this constant spending. And there's been other members in the House that have talked about the spending. But I think one of the challenges is that this government continues to make promises that they have no intention of keeping, or they have no intention of delivering, or they have no idea how they're going to make it. I can give you hundreds of examples. I'm going to give you a couple examples tonight during my speech. One of the members from the Liberal Party talked earlier, and as a matter of fact, they talk about this, we're in a housing crisis, and so they talk quite a bit about their commitment to build 3.9 million homes over the next 7 years. And we can hear this number, and they talk about it all the time, and they talk about all this money they're contributing to the cause, but yet we're not seeing any results. And I know that we've had colleagues ask the question, and I want to break down the numbers for people at home just to realize how absurd this number is. In terms of looking at 3.9 million homes by 2031, that's 7 years away. That's almost 560,000 homes a year. That's over 46,000 homes a month. That's over 10,000 homes a week. That's over 1,500 homes per day. That's over 63 homes per hour. So we're looking at pretty much a home needs to be built every hour in this country. And we look at where the current building situation is in this country. We see that this past year, we only actually built 240,000 homes. And part of the reason for that is this whole issue of red tape and regulations. And the fact remains is that there's really no plan. Once again, there's a promise for what we'd like to see happen. That's what the Liberal government does oftentimes. They talk about what they promise or what they would like to do or what they love to see happen. And, I'm going to make my points tonight that I think this government is completely incompetent and doesn't have any idea how they're going to deliver any of the things that they actually promise individuals. So in order to help them try and deliver this stuff, they do spend a lot of money in consultants. That's been a theme here through the House over the last little while. We see that there's been over $15 billion spent in 21-22. We see the McKinsey. Originally, we thought that they had been given $100 million in contracts. It turns out that number is actually $200 million in contracts. We see that the increased size of the bureaucracy by almost 40% since the time we were in government. And it was interesting that right after COVID, I think if people remember, they were going to get their passports renewed, and the challenges they were having, they were waiting for hours and hours. And so we thought, okay, they're hiring more people to help make this happen. I have to say, in talking to my constituents, the service is actually as bad as it was back then. I talked to someone the other day that went in for a passport, and they said to me they waited for over 3 hours. Think about that. We're not in post-COVID time. We have a bureaucracy that's 40% larger than when we were in government, and yet this government has no ability, no competence whatsoever to be able to actually deliver those things. So we haven't seen services improve at all. And as a matter of fact, government regulations is the other side of that coin, right? The reasons we can't build homes is that government regulations are pretty, they're tough at all levels. I'm not going to say just at the federal level, but certainly provincially and municipally. And for those of you that aren't so lucky as I am, I come from an area in Niagara where we have actually 4 levels of government. So we have a regional level of government that adds a layer of complexity to that. And CFIB said that it costs small businesses nearly $40 billion a year 40 billion small businesses in order for them to be able to deal with regulations. And CFIB also said that probably 30% of that $40 billion a year is unnecessary, redundant, and overly burdensome regulation. And so that leads me into talking about small business. And I think that this government's record has been horrendous on small businesses. Right. As a matter of fact, I think small businesses are being crushed under this government. And I think we go back to COVID and we see some of the unfair restrictions that happened with restaurants and the hospitality industry. Those hangovers remain. We look at it right now in terms of, large multinationals and global consulting firms and billion-dollar companies have never had it so good under this government. Right. I mean, they are laughing. Their pockets are stuffed with cash, but small businesses continue to get crushed. I had a chance to talk to an individual restaurateur in my riding. I was at an event in Grimsby, Ontario on Friday, and I had a chance to talk to him, and his name's Mark. Mark owns a couple restaurants, and I said, how are you doing since COVID? Have you been able to rebound? He said, as a matter of fact, I'm still killed. I'm still crushed, as a matter of fact. I am struggling to make the bills. I'm struggling to be able to maintain what's happening. As a matter of fact, one of my other restaurants, I had to try and sell because of the issues there. And if that, that's really not, he's not unique. Because if you go to Restaurants Canada, they're going to tell you that they're almost 42% of businesses went insolvent. I mean, the number's around 41% for businesses in general, but when you add into restaurants, that number goes up to literally 44%. And it would say that, in like the year before, so coming out of COVID last year, we saw that, only half of restaurants were losing money. That number currently this year is probably up to 62%. So, when this government says to you, listen, you have never had it so good, I would challenge you, I would ask you to go and talk to a small business person and see if they actually feel the same way. So, one of the challenges is people are losing hope, right? And they are losing faith. And once again, the member from Calgary Nose Hill did mention the fact, and one of the questioners mentioned that people are leaving in record amounts from this country. We're seeing an all-time, because people are trying to go to places where maybe they would have some hope. And I think that's the sad part. We got a great country. I just think it's tremendously mismanaged. And I think about what's going on right now. I could stand here all night and just talk about the mismanagement, but I just want to give you a couple highlights. I look at the most recent Auditor General report, said that there was over 180 conflicts when looking at contracts. 186 times there was conflict of interest. The Treasury Board said there was over 160 conflicts when it came to dealing with consultants and contractors. And that's for the people that self-disclosed. Imagine the people that didn't actually mention there was 163 times. And it doesn't take long for us to go, Blacklocks does a great job. I encourage people to have a look at their news organization. It's a subscription, but they have great information. They come up with a story. And this was done with some OPQs. We were able to figure this out. But there was a couple sole source contracts during COVID. We don't have to go back too far. We see a sole source contract for Starfish that had new ventilators and was given $170 million. And some of them were scrapped even while the pandemic was going on. And others were sold for as little as $6. And we certainly will never forget the juicy contract that Frank Bayless, one-term MP here, got for ventilators for $237 million. Wow. And so these are the things that I think really frustrate people. And this is what we're talking about. We're talking about government that has a spending problem, but I think we have a government that is absolutely incompetent when it comes to being able to deliver the things they talk about. I got a minute left, so we got to wrap it up, Madam Speaker. Listen, I would love to talk a bit about the Winnipeg lab story. I think it's kind of it's ironic, it's sad that we had a couple scientists that were actually, getting packages from Amazon. They were getting stuff from China and they're sending stuff back. That's unbelievable. And then this government covered it up. That's absolutely insane because they didn't want to realize how incompetent they were in dealing with and we also find out they were working for the military, the Chinese military. So once again, Madam Speaker, there are many things I could go on. I see that my time is almost over. But one thing I'll tell you, this government is just not worth the cost. And when we get a chance, we're going to give people hope. We're going to give people faith, and we're going to give people a chance to have a better life once again.
Hear, hear.